Good afternoon and thank you for joining us. Today we're putting missing children in focus. May is Missing Children's Month and May 25th is International Missing Child Day. We want you to join in on our conversation. Our phone lines are open. Call us toll-free at 1-877-647-2786. You can also tweet us at APTN InFocus. Use the hashtag missing. Joining us now, Jessica Husick, the program manager with the Child Safety and Family Advocacy Division of the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. Susan Chief is the patrol coordinator for the Bear Clan Patrol in Winnipeg. And from the Winnipeg Police Service, Sergeant Rick McDougall of the Specialized Investigations, Counter-Exploitation Unit and Missing Persons Unit. And a little later in the show, APTN Investigates Martha Troyan, who has done extensive reporting on missing persons, will also be joining us. Thank you all for taking some time here this afternoon to be with us. Jessica, if we could start with you, as you're only going to be able to stick around with us for one segment, and that's because the 18th Annual Missing and Exploited Children Training Conference is underway here in Winnipeg, a big conference. Can you tell us a little bit about it and why it's important to bring people together?
Absolutely. Like you said, it's our 18th annual, so we've been putting this conference on for almost 2 decades now. And so what we do is we have presenters from across the world come and speak. We have 2 focus areas. We have our law enforcement stream and then our child welfare stream. So we have presentations that are focused on both missing and exploited children. Sometimes they involve case studies, also looking at emerging trends and making sure that we're keeping our frontline officers and frontline service providers up to date with the risks that we're seeing that our children are facing today.
And, you know, we mentioned that a couple of years ago it was the 30th anniversary of the center. What have you seen change in that past 33 years, I guess it's been? What has changed for better, for worse?
For sure. So it's actually kind of cool if you look back to the roots of our organization, which were actually started in 1985 when Candace Dirksen went missing, and her family founded Child Find Manitoba. So it's kind of neat, like I said, to look at what we were in 1985 as to who we are now. We're leaders, I know that, in the country regarding, of course, missing and exploited children, and making sure that we're educating the public, responding to what the concerns are, and supporting families and individuals in need who have been impacted by missing and exploited children. So I think both the risk factors have increased, but also our knowledge of what the issues are and how to keep children safer have also increased.
And as we mentioned, May is the month for missing children. What has the center have planned?
For sure. So last fall, in November, one of the moms that we've been working with for a number of years, her 3 sons were abducted from her in 1996 from Newfoundland. So she actually penned a beautiful and just heartbreaking letter to her 3 sons, writing to them about, you know, her kind of everyday feelings and what it's been like searching for them. And so we shared this letter on social media, and we were totally blown away by the amount of people that really rallied behind this mom to make sure her letter got read. So we used her letter as inspiration. So we've gone out to some of the other families, most of the other families that we work with, to offer the same experience. So throughout the month of May, we'll be sharing letters from other families. And, you know, it's a very important month, of course, but it's a time for us to remind the public that these families go through this every single day, right? Some of them have been searching for their child for decades. Some children, of course, have recovered quite quickly. So it's really important that the public not forget these kids, you know, regardless of how many times you've seen them in the media, or, you know, you think something has become a cold case. We know that police aren't closing investigations until there is a resolution. So it's important for the public to become engaged, help share these letters. We also have a missing kids alert system that people can go visit our website, missingkidsalert.ca, and enter in an email address. It takes about 10 seconds, and people can become equipped to know when a child is missing in their community and can help out.
Rick, can you kind of walk us through what the Missing Persons Unit, how it reacts when a missing person is reported, what the steps are, I guess?
Yeah, well, depending on the nature, what I can tell you is each one is case specific. It really depends on details of specific cases. One of the first things is when the person reports them as missing, the first question that we want answered, as they do, is where is this person? So we usually try to have a starting point. You know, where were they last seen? Who were they with? And then that can kind of dictate where our investigation goes from there.
What changes have you seen, say, in these last 30 years? Well, the center's been around, but in terms of, you know, the technology that's out there, for better or worse? Yeah,
you know what, I think probably the changes in technology. I mean, we've got cellular phones now that weren't around previously. Social media plays a huge role for us immediately. Even now with our media releases, they're generated immediately and they're shared with social media and a variety of the social media platforms. Even sometimes we've located missing persons quite quickly because they are active on social media, and which can provide us an instant resolution that way. There's also a lot of video surveillance that's available to us, and quite often quickly. That certainly wasn't available even in the last 10 years. So yeah, the technology has certainly increased, and we're constantly looking at exploring the changes in technology, and much with the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. One thing that we're involved with right now, and that we get a lot of reports on in terms of trying to protect children, is the online luring that's happening. And we've done projects to try to specifically target that and to protect children from that type of online luring. A lot of times it's the imaging and some of the images that are being generated and distributed. And again, the Canadian Centre for Child Protection has been a huge proponent of that with Project Arachnid, which is a program piece of technology that aggressively and actively targets those images and takes them down.
Susan, can you tell us a little bit about how the Bear Clan approaches trying to locate a missing loved one?
On our Bear Clan Patrol Inc. page on our website, we get the posters and their information. Recent photos really, really help. We put them on our page, we share them on our members feed, we share them to each other's phones so everybody has them. The more it's out there and the faster it's out there, and the faster we get results.
Have you, Bear Clan's been involved in quite a few high-profile cases. Have you been involved in many of these searches for missing loved ones?
Yeah. I was just at the river last week helping with the Brett case. So I was there all week. That's why my face is so burnt.
Sergeant McDougall, sorry, Jessica, are there, we were looking at some of the stats, some hot spots in the country where these, there seems to be where the stats are much higher than in other places around the country. Are there places where there seems to be more incidences of missing persons?
Ontario actually usually has the highest reports of missing children, but again, it's an issue across the entire country and in every single province.
And Sergeant McDougall, we also see a lot of missing persons here in the city of Winnipeg. Incidents that have been going up since I think 2015 was a peak year with close to 9,000, followed by the next year close to 10,000, and then last year nearly 11,000 incidents of missing persons. What's behind that?
Yeah. That's a good question, but you are correct. Actually, we've seen a steady increase actually from 2014, when there was about 7,000 reported incidents of missing persons here in Winnipeg, and then a peak actually 2017 last year, the last year that we have completed stats, we hit almost 11,000, which is quite disturbing. You're pushing 900, close to 1,000 missing persons reports per month. The positive thing about that, though, is of those, a majority of them have been found, whether it's found by police with the assistance of the Canadian Child Protection Centre, by family members, by assistance from Bear Clan, and from assistance from a lot of the outreach agencies and a lot of the agencies that we all partner with and that we all share this responsibility in finding missing persons. So initially you see that near 10,000 to 11,000 missing persons numbers, it is comforting to know that we are finding the majority of them. Really our goal, and I think everybody here at the table, our goal is to see zero. We would like to see zero reported incidents of missing persons. Is that realistic? No, but it shouldn't stop us from trying to achieve that number.
How many people would work in, say, the Winnipeg Missing Persons Unit looking at these increasing numbers of incidents that are being reported?
Yeah. Well, aside from the dedicated officers that we have in our uniform operations spread amongst our 4 divisions, that quite often are the first emergency call that will go out, and a team or more will be assigned to actively search for these missing persons. Quite often, if it is a much more complex case that requires more in-depth work and more evidence to be collected and more areas to be checked, that's when my unit will become involved. And currently we have a team of 12 detectives as well, who are supervised by detective sergeants, and then myself and the staff sergeant and inspector. And we will divide up the work, whether it's speaking to witnesses, going to locations, checking addresses that they're known to be frequented. Again, try to answer that basic question of where can they be.
Susan, we hear of increasing numbers and patrols for Bear Clan. Do you have an idea, a sense of how many people you can pull together to go out there and look for some of these missing loved ones?
It all depends on the time and day, really, because a lot of people work during the day. But usually about 20 and up that we're able to get out.
Why do you think you've had so much success as Bear Clan in helping locate people?
It's because majority of the people know who we are and we're trusted. People know that we're not the cops or we're not violent, things like that, so they trust us more.
Rick, can you talk a bit about having groups like Bear Clan and Drag the Red, some of the other groups that are out there, what that has meant for city police, good or bad, or does it help out?
It's been absolutely positive. The more partnerships we can get, the more people that we can get to assist with us in our efforts, the better. And I mean, the Bear Clan, for one example, has just been instrumental to us in forming a partnership. We're in constant contact with them and their members. And the fact that they've expanded now into the West End and the West Broadway, and now I understand even today they could be looking at moving a chapter into the PAW, I think is very positive. The more partnerships we can form, and we've partnered with a lot of outreach agencies as well that not only go out and actively look for missing persons, but actually take a more preventative role as well in making sure that our vulnerable people are getting the care that they need so that they don't become missing in the first place.
Susan, you feel as though the relationship with police is pretty good?
Yep.
A lot of partnerships?
Yeah. I find it good. It's good that we have some police officers that come and walk with us time to time.
We spoke about, or you mentioned the, keeping cold cases out there. How does that take place? Some of these cases date back years, decades. How do you, I guess, provide some hope for these families that it's not being forgotten?
That's a really good question. Like Rick said, lots of the missing children cases that we're involved with are resolved very quickly, and a child is brought back to their caregivers and is safe, so that's very good news. But we do have a number of families that have been searching for decades. The oldest case I think we have is from 1954. So a 9-year-old little boy went missing in the GTA, and we're still in touch with his family. So what that looks like, it's different for every family, but in general what we really want to do is keep their story alive and let the families know that we're never going to stop searching. We say it and we mean it, and we make sure that we prove it to those families that we've not forgotten about their loved ones. So again, opportunities like Missing Children's Month and talking about different children who, of course, would now be an adult, but letting the public know, if you know something or if you've been holding on to information, from way back when, there's families that are lost and empty and missing someone literally every single day of their life. So it's never too late to share information, report information, whether it be to law enforcement or to our Missing Kids program. Information can be reported anonymously to us. So just carrying on the torch for searching for their loved one, we know that it means the world to families, and we hear it every day.
Rick, as police, how do you handle that? I'm sure you must get calls to the department quite often from families just looking for any sign of hope, any new information.
Yeah, for some of the larger cases, we certainly try to assign a family liaison officer so that the families have that one point of contact. You know, a lot of times, you know, the families, you know, want to know, you know, up-to-date information. A lot of times, unfortunately, we don't have information to update them with, which is disappointing for us, and it's disappointing for the families as well, because they sometimes feel that there's a disconnect between them and members of the police. And it's not that we're, you know, certainly not trying to have that disconnect. It's just a lot of times if we don't have any additional information, we don't have anything to share. And we're just as disappointed as the families are when we have no new information, where there's been no new leads, or, you know, as Jessica said, if things have become cold. You know, it's disappointing for us too. But we do try to assign a family liaison officer to these, certainly the longer term or the cold cases, to ensure that there is that line of contact.
What do you say to, as no doubt you've heard over the years, not as much as anymore as you used to, but you know, those families who felt police didn't handle the case properly in the beginning, or didn't put as much care into it? I guess as somebody who's been in this division for so long, what would you say to people who have those feelings?
Yeah, well, again, you know, each case is specific, so I wouldn't be able to comment on any individual cases, but I certainly do share their disappointment in that perhaps things didn't happen the way that they felt that they should. I mean, really, anytime that somebody's reported missing a loved one, can't find someone that they've reported missing, us, as much as they do, want to find them, and they want to find them now. So anything short of that is going to be a disappointment, and we're just as disappointed as they are if we can't find them immediately. And the longer the time goes on, I believe the greater that disappointment becomes. And you know, it's very disheartening to me too when I hear that people don't feel that they're getting the response or that continued line of contact with the police that they would like, because we do try to assign individual officers to be that family liaison. We do have other outreach agencies that can certainly be in contact with them and try to share some information. A lot of times too, what people don't realize is that we do have certain evidence that we need to hold dear to us, depending on where a certain case goes, and we sometimes can't necessarily share that evidence, nor can we share sometimes the techniques that we use. My fear oftentimes is the moment that some of our techniques become public, they're going to stop being effective. Right. So we're sometimes guarded that way, and that sometimes I know the family views that as us perhaps not telling them as much as they'd like us to.
Right. Important to know. We do have to step aside for a quick break, so I do want to thank Jessica for joining us today, stepping aside from the conference that's taking place in the city of Winnipeg. Before we do go to break, we are going to show you some of the missing loved ones from across the country, and we'll begin with Colton Fleury. We are asking for the public's help in finding 16-year-old Colton Theron Fleury, who was last seen at his residence on Thursday, May 3rd, 2018. Last seen a red hoodie and jeans. If you have any information about Colton, please contact the Prince George RCMP at 250-561-3300. Join our conversation now. Send your thoughts in an email to infocus@aptn.ca. Like our APTN InFocus Facebook page. Follow and tweet us at APTN InFocus, or call in toll-free at 1-877-647-2786. Welcome back to In Focus. Instead of our usual social media, we're going to take a look at some cases of missing loved ones. Braden Bushy was last seen in the West Broadway area of Winnipeg, Manitoba on November 16th, 2003. He was last seen wearing a black leather jacket, blue jeans, white shoes with black stripes, and a black backpack. Dwayne Tyler Ross was last seen in Thompson on October 1st, 2003. He was walking down a path in the woods with his cousin who lost sight of him, and Ross has not been seen since. He was last seen wearing a blue sweater and blue pants. In March of 1974, 14-year-old Barry Rocky Fiddler was first reported missing by his family when he failed to return home. After an investigation into his disappearance, it was learned he was last seen on July of 1975 at a powwow at Thunderchild First Nation in Saskatchewan. He was last seen wearing blue jeans, brown boots, a brown wool checker jacket. If you have any information about Barry's or any of these youth's disappearances, please visit missingkids.ca or call 1-866-KIDS-TIPS. That's 1-866-543-8477 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. Join our conversation now. Send your thoughts in an email to infocus@aptn.ca. Like our APTN InFocus Facebook page. Follow and tweet us at APTN InFocus or call in toll-free at 1-877-647-2786. Sergeant McDougall, in the last segment we spoke a bit about the increasing numbers of missing persons reports here in the city of Winnipeg, and runaways are the most commonly reported missing persons, and Manitoba has one of the highest number of cases, even more than Ontario, according to the latest statistics, where 13 million more people live. Why is it, do you think, that we're seeing that many runaways here in Manitoba, such a smaller province compared to a place like Ontario?
Yeah. You know, I wish I had a definitive answer for you, but I don't. What I can tell you, though, is that here in Winnipeg, within the Winnipeg Police, we consider somebody chronic when they go missing repeatedly in any given month. So if this particular month they've been reported missing on a number of occasions, but perhaps the next month they haven't been reported missing, we no longer consider them chronic. But we do have a number of youths, and when I say youth, it's actually one of the age ranges is around the 14 to 16 year mark. Seems to be a real peak. And the majority of the missing persons reports that we receive, those that we consider chronic, seem to be from that age group. And exactly, again, as I said before, each case is specific. A lot of times when we talk to these individual kids and ask them why they're repeatedly being reported as missing, a common answer they get is they don't like where they are. They don't like the stage in their life, which we find quite concerning.
About 2,500 incidents a month. You know, the Winnipeg Police Service does do to the police board every quarter an update on these. Can you talk about, obviously no specifics, but say one child, how many times they might go missing in a year or be reported missing? Sure.
For those that are more chronic, sorry, you said 2,500. That might have been for our quarterly report.
Yeah, 2,500.
If it was 2,500 in a month, I'd be really scared.
Right. Sorry. Yes.
Sorry,
yes.
But yeah, you know, you are right. We do report to the board on a quarterly basis, and I do believe even for this, actually for this quarter in 2018, thankfully we're only at about 1,800. That's still a high number, and but it still represents you know close to 800-900 a month. Which is concerning. And when you look at, if you were to break down the numbers, there are those that are considered chronic that can be reported, you know, 5 times a month plus. We do have identified actually a number of youths that we consider very high risk, vulnerable youths that are reported missing at a very high rate, and that we do consider to be quite vulnerable, because when they start going missing like that, they're vulnerable to sexual exploitation, they're vulnerable to joining gangs, they're vulnerable to being involved in illegal drugs, and we've seen the harm that those drugs take on a person's lives, and Susan certainly with the Bear Clan could attest to that. They see it firsthand, the damage that's being done. So we consider them very high risk, and you know, we look at doing some a little more intense monitoring of them then.
Susan, can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing out there on the streets?
There's a lot of what he just talked about. There's a lot of that on the streets, and it's just like, I've been there. I've used to do all that stuff, And I connect with a lot of these youth just because I've been through what they're going through. And when you're one of them, you can feel when somebody's real. You get that sense, vibe from them. So I connect with a lot of them, and that's why I do the Bear Clan. It's just because I know they need somebody that really understands them. And it's just they become missing, runaways, because the homes that they're placed in they don't feel the love, they don't feel the care for, and that's what they need. So in a lot of homes, once you're in one of these homes and you do something wrong, even if it's the tiniest little thing, they just want to get rid of you. And you go back into the system, into the next home, to the next home. So.
What's your message to these youth when you encounter them?
I just listen to them. I just give them a year to let go of some of their anger and their stress.
Sergeant McDougall, in the last police report to the board, it said 87% of the incidents were reported from CFS, Child Family Services facilities. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think as I said earlier, and as even Susan attested to, I think that accounts for a lot of the chronic cases that we get. And again, when we talk individually one-on-one with a lot of them and we ask them why they're being reported missing as often as they are, the common answer they get is they don't like their home placement. They don't like their home environment. And that's why they're leaving for periods of time, and their caregivers don't know where they are. And a lot of times that gets them out onto the street and makes them extremely vulnerable at that point.
Well, Susan, you said you'd gone through 140 homes or so in your youth?
I've been through quite a bit, yeah, back and forth.
And this led to you being, I guess, out on the streets?
Yeah. It's just, it's all down to not being wanted. Like when we're that age, when we go from these houses to houses to houses, and nobody really wants, there's the odd homes that give you a chance and want to show you what love is and how to be a mom and stuff like that. But a lot of the homes, they don't really care to.
Sergeant, there's been a lot of calls for changes in the way that things are done from the Child Advocate and others in terms of keeping track of these kids that are in care. What can you tell us on what is being looked at to try and bring some of these numbers down?
Well, again, I can't talk about specific cases, but certainly for our high risk vulnerables, we do certainly identify them and identify what needs there are. We have partnered with a lot of the outreach agencies that are out there to do some outreach work to try to take preventative measures to make sure that those, when they do go missing, that they're found as quickly as possible and cared for, and then prevented from going missing again.
What can you tell us about recently there was funding for Runaway to provide a 24-hour, 24/7 safe place for youth. It's named, memorialized after Tina Fontaine. Susan, your work in that area, are you seeing a positive change from having a 24-hour safe space over there?
Getting there, yeah. And it's very helpful for me because I'm out on the streets after hours and I come across a few kids here and there, and if they need somewhere to stay overnight, then I take them there. So.
Was that an issue before, having somewhere to take these
Somewhere
youth?
for the younger ones to go, yes.
Sergeant, have you seen a positive change from this center being now open 24/7?
Yeah, I think it provides that with a safe place, and that's one of the biggest issues that we're finding is even if the police take somebody into care that's been reported missing, a lot of our times our response is to take them back to the caregiver, and if that missing person doesn't want to be with that caregiver, what's their other option? Right, so to be providing safe places like Susan described, that gives them at least one other option. That takes them off the street, that takes them away from those dangers that are out there that would otherwise further victimize them.
Quite often we also get releases from police in the province, the other agencies that you partner with on some of these, house-to-house searches that are done for children that have gone missing or that are being exploited out there. Some pretty horrific releases that come out of there. What sense can you give us of the issue, how big that issue is here in the city?
Yeah, again, that's something that perhaps needs to be asked of the provincial government agencies. I mean, a lot of times, our response really is to try to find these kids when they're reported missing, and then once we do find them, really our only authority at that point is to turn them over to the caregivers or to somebody to care for them. So what happens beyond that really is a question we'd have to ask of the proper authorities in the province and higher.
I believe we have a caller on the line right now, Camellia. I don't think, sorry, I didn't get where you were calling us from, but Camellia, go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just want to say I'm sure glad to see Susan there from the Bear Clan Patrol. As a great-grandmother and looking after our children, our Aboriginal children, as a foster mother since 1974, it's right. We have to have our own group, our own people looking after our children. No white. It's over. The children, our youth, do not trust the white police officer with guns on their hips and authority. They want compassion and love and understanding, and that's all they want. And you got to hear them and listen to them. Just because you got a uniform on and you're a police officer, you don't come in there with authority. I've had experience with policemen, the way they treated my foster kids. I had to advocate for them. I had to go to the police chief. So these things have to come about, now is the time. It's 2018. I'm getting old. I'm not well anymore. And I adopted 2 boys from the system. They can't be moved around. They're human beings. They got love. They need love. We got to love them as they are. That's our future. Black, yellow, red, and white, the medicine wheel. Our children. Those are all our children. I'm not racist. I've got white relatives. I've got black relatives. I've got Asian relatives. And I'm Cree from Northern Alberta, but I'm married a guy from Fisher River. So we have to love our children. We have to come on their level, and be with them and love them as they are, so they can be prosperous in this world and kind and be kindness. That's what it is. You got to be kind to them. And they know in their hearts who loves them. They know. You just got to listen to them, and they're loving. The teenagers, youth, the kids, they're beautiful. They're beautiful kids, and we need them. They teach me so much. Especially the ones with SD. They teach me. I adopted 2, and they're so special. So I just want to. Who killed Tina Fontaine? I Sundance at Saugeen, and I always think of little Tina and the kids. And I still haven't met one sister yet. And so many people are missing and murdered. Why? What's going on? Does anybody care?
Well,
so I just want to say thank you so much for doing the work. And police officers, I don't have nothing. I got people in the police force that I'm related to. But I know it's a lot of work, but we just have to start loving each other and caring for one another if we're going to survive as human beings. Thank you, Miigwech. Now, God bless.
Miigwech, Camellia, we appreciate you taking the time to call in and share your thoughts with us, and you can hear in her voice the level of care there. And Susan, is this something that you hear from people out there that they're, I guess, happier to see perhaps somebody from Bear Clan rather than an officer at times?
No, definitely. It depends on who the person is. Like a lot of these kids, like I said, they sense what kind of person you are. They've been through so much pain. They've been through everything. So they know if you're real, they know if you're not. So I connect with a lot of kids, and I work with a lot of them. I talk to them on a daily basis. I meet up with them at nighttime when they're out on the streets, when they take off. Try and get them back into school. I take them, I talk with them, and I ask for their school attendances. And if they do good, And if they go to school regular, then I take them out for dinner or something. Just something to show that they are loved and that they are cared for. I also just took in a foster boy again. I've been fostering since I was just about 18. I had my first kid off the street, and I had 2 of my kids of my own already. So I've got a few foster kids under my wing, and just kids that call me mom off the streets. And, so.
Sergeant McDougall, you did hear some criticism there, I guess, for police, and that sentiment's out there. Has there been changes in recent years to try and build those bridges between police here in the city, I guess, and the people out there?
Yeah, we're constantly trying to bridge that gap and to reconcile a lot of those feelings. But unfortunately, we're still hearing a lot of those feelings that are out there, whether they're historical or current. They're still there. It cuts me deeply. It cuts my fellow officers deeply when we hear that, and we've certainly taken it upon ourselves to try to reach out as much as we can. The police service itself now, and especially my unit, we have partnered with a lot of different outreach groups. I'm at Mama Wichita twice a month. I'm in contact with the Bear Clan, where we're part of the Winnipeg Outreach Network, and a lot of these grassroots agencies that do the frontline works to try to be out there more, and to certainly try to change the way that historically we've done things, and to try to change that feeling towards us.
We're going to step aside for one more quick break here, and when we return, APTN investigative reporter Martha Troyan will be joining us. But before we go to break, here's another profile of a missing loved one. It's of 23-year-old April Carpenter. April was last seen in the west end of Winnipeg, Manitoba on Thursday, April 26, 2018. Carpenter is described as an Indigenous female, 5'7", 130 pounds, with brown shoulder-length hair and noticeable dimples. If you have any information, please contact the Winnipeg Police Missing Persons Unit at 204-986-6250. Welcome back to In Focus. This week, instead of doing social media, we've been bringing up some photos and information of missing children from across the country. And up next, we have 2 girls who went missing from Kitigan-Zibi, Anishinaabe Nation in Quebec. Maisie Ojic, along with her friend Shannon Alexander, were last seen on September 6, 2008. Ojic went to spend the night at Alexander's place, and they were last seen by Alexander's father. They may have been sighted in the Ottawa and Kingston area in Ontario just after they were reported missing back in 2008. But there hasn't been any communication with them since. If you have any information on the disappearance of Maisie Ojic and Shannon Alexander, please contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. And joining us now on the panel is Martha Troyan of APTN Investigates. Martha has worked quite extensively on stories of the missing. She's also a big part of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls database that CBC has put together. Martha, you've spoken with a lot of families with missing loved ones. What are some of the things, the common themes that you hear from the families?
Well, sometimes it feels like you're just scratching the surface on some of these cases when you investigate them. Unfortunately, there's so many of them, and there's always new ones coming out. And we consider them new as journalists, as citizens, but to the families and communities, of course, they're not new cases. Or sometimes you don't see these cases as well in known databases. But what the families basically expressed over time is there's always a repetition, I guess, of responses by the families, and a lot of them basically express frustration with officials, in particular with police. So, for instance, many of them feel left out of the investigation or not knowing what's happening with an investigation. Some of them feel like little progress has been made on the case. Some of them feel like they almost feel like this sense of hopelessness. They feel like no one's communicating with them, you know. And some of them, in some cases, like they feel even scared talking about their interactions with the police. So for instance, Tamara Keepness, this is a little girl who was 5 years old. She went missing in Regina, central Regina, in 2004. And I interviewed the family back in 2015, her mother, Loretta. And, you know, she was really reluctant talking about the investigation, about her interactions with the police. So for instance, you know, she expressed to us how the police, she felt like they were interrogating her and her partner and the children at the time, when that time should have been spent, you know, searching for Tamara, for instance. So in another case, for an example, is Charlene Catholic. She's from Northwest Territories. Her father, Joe, is a person that I interviewed back in 2015 again. Charlene went missing in 1990. She was 15 years old. And the father at the time, like, you know, this father was basically saying that he's not reaching out to the police anymore because and no one reaches out to him. So he was just feeling like, I love my daughter immensely, but there's nothing that I can do, and the police isn't showing me any signs that they're doing anything. He's also, you know, this is another common thing where families would take on a case and take on their family member's case and try to investigate it themselves. You know, this is something that Joe Catholic did for his daughter. He went down into the States and traveled into 3 states, putting up posters, doing this kind of information. So these are just some of the examples that and patterns that we were hearing when we were interviewing family members across the country.
Sergeant McDougall, are there oftentimes difficulties in working with families? Maybe there's a mistrust there. Do you come across that?
Yeah. Again, you know, as I said before, each case is specific, but I will share something that Martha said that we do certainly share with the families, is that after a period of time when we've exhausted all of our investigative leads and explored as much as we can, we certainly share that feeling of hopelessness. You know, we try to do as much as we can. We try to look everywhere that we can, and we try to do as much as we can, but there does come a point sometimes in some of these cases, the longer that the time goes on, the more hopeless we feel, and we certainly share that hopelessness with the family, even though perhaps it's not communicated as much as it should be.
Yeah, you mentioned, you know, families taking these cases on themselves, and that's something that we see quite often in the stories we tell. Is that, Susan, do you work with a lot of families who are out there, you know, hitting the pavement themselves, trying to find their loved ones, not waiting around for somebody else to be looking for them?
Majority of the time, the ones that we get, emails and stuff that we get for missing, it's majority we get them first before the police, just because everybody knows that in order for them to be legally reported missing, you got to wait 24 hours. So usually everybody sends us their missing loved ones report, and we get it on our page right away. And this way, the faster it's out there, the faster they're found.
And how quickly do you, after receiving this information, put patrols out there?
Well, we spread the poster out, like media-wise, and our cell phones and our members page, and the majority of the time, all of us are out there looking while we're doing our out and abouts, and our patrols we share the information with everybody else that shows up to patrol. So we're always looking.
Is this, you know, sharing it in other places before sharing it with police? Is that something that's common, something that you'd recommend, I guess?
I'm sorry, to share.
Sharing the information about a loved one with other places before the 24 hours or whatever?
Actually, if I could just clarify, I can't speak for other police agencies in terms of how they receive missing persons reports, but what I can tell you here with the Winnipeg Police, we don't have a 24-hour waiting period. If a loved one or a person has any reason to believe that a person is missing, they shouldn't be where they're supposed to be, they can call immediately and we'll take immediate action. And there's a lot of times where we've gotten reports from loved ones that they expected their child or loved one home at a certain period of time, and it's now 10, 15 minutes later and it's out of their character, we'll take that missing persons report and we'll act on it, especially if there's a place to look for it, especially if it's a child, especially if it's a vulnerable person. We will go and start the search, start the investigation there. So there certainly is no 24-hour period. In terms of sharing of information, we do issue our media releases, and we are careful sometimes about the criteria that we use to issue those media releases. We hope that when we do that, there is going to be some feedback from it, that it's going to assist in locating that missing person. So we want to make sure that we have as much detail as we can, a good description, ideally a recent photo of the person, as well as an area that they were their last seen that could certainly help us find that person.
And we do often hear conflicting information on that, and I think it is worth repeating that at least here in the city of Winnipeg, there is no 24-hour waiting period. If your loved one's missing, contact police right away. Martha, as a mother, somebody who's done a lot of these stories, a mother of a young child, how does that affect you, telling a story of somebody's missing loved one?
Well, like many other parents, I mean, I've had, I do have conversations with my son about personal safety. He knows, for instance, not to talk to strangers. He knows not to approach cars, even if a person is pleading for help. He knows not to go by water, things like that. But yeah, we definitely have those conversations, and I can't imagine what these families and parents go through without their children by their side.
Sergeant, for yourself, as someone, you not only work in missing persons, you work in the exploitation unit as well. That must weigh heavy on you at some times.
Yeah, certainly. I've lost a lot of sleep since I've been a member of this unit. But some of the more positives that have come about it, last year in April 2017, we've actually combined our resources and our investigators from our counter-exploitation unit and our missing persons unit. So now that they work in tandem with each other on a lot of these cases, because we recognized very quickly that a lot of our reported missing youth are the ones that are being exploited, whether it's, as I said before, through sexual exploitation, through being vulnerable to being lured into gangs, or to being lured by the temptations of illegal drugs and the negative impact that they can have on those people's lives. So it's been good that our two units are now combined, and we have been able to do a lot of good work, especially with the outreach work and our preventative measures that we've been taking to prevent them from becoming exploited and becoming missing in the first place.
Susan, is this something you see as that correlation between the people that might be out there just homeless for a night, but end up with some sort of being exploited in some sort of way, or turning to drugs?
That's the case in the majority of it. When these youth and teens are missing out there, and they come across these gangs, they come across these people, other groups of people that make them feel like they're going to be family, because they promise them this, they promise them that, and they're thinking, okay, well, I'm not loved at the home I'm in or at home, so I'll join this family. And that's when it becomes bad for them.
What role, I guess, do you have to try and prevent them from going to that so-called other family?
Well, I've been there, I've done it, so now I know for a fact that what I tell the kids that I come across now, the ones that I talk to, the ones that I work with, I tell them that these gang members are going to tell you that they love you. They're going to tell you that they're going to get you this and get you that. And once you get caught for doing something and end up in jail or getting charges and things like that, they'll turn their back just as quick.
Often we hear of people that were helped by Bear Clan that end up doing patrols with Bear Clan and becoming members. Do you have any stories like that you've seen of somebody that was out there and now out there on the streets helping patrol with you?
We have quite a few of them. The majority of them are from the streets. The majority of them are, like with the youth walk, I got my daughter, like my biological daughter, that's the team lead of the youth walk, and I also have 4 other kids that we've helped, that I've helped, and come off the streets, and they're all Bear Clan patrollers.
Great stories, great stuff. Thanks for your work, Susan. Thanks for all of your work on these issues. And unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there for today's show. But again, thanks also to Jessica Husick from the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, who joined us earlier in the week, Susan Chief of Bear Clan Patrol, Sergeant Rick McDougall of the Winnipeg Police Service, and Martha Troyan from APTN Investigates. If you have any information on any of the missing people we showed you today, and you can find more on our online, you can call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. That's 1-800-222-8477. Join us again back here next week at the same time for another episode of In Focus. This episode will be available for download as a podcast on our website, aptnnews.ca/podcast. If you've missed any other shows you want to catch up, you can check out the website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks to Charmaine. Have a good rest of your day.